We'll chant Om once, and we'll start dynamics. Oh. Very happy to see all of you. This is the best way to spend or invest on a Friday night. For those in Canada, it's our long weekend. For those in Ontario, it's almost like this retreat was designed for the lockdown that we're in right now. You're welcome. In 2014, when we began the marriage enrichment retreats, we began in Pittsburgh, and the theme was Vedic Vivaha, what each step of a Vivaha means to a marriage. Since this was my first retreat, my mother-in-law had given me a book, and she's a psychiatrist, so she gave me a book that was called Marriage Therapy. She said, use this for the retreat. But I know her. She wanted me to read that for our relationship. I'm going to share with you a dynamics from that book. Everyone show me your sheet of paper that you're writing all of your notes on. Okay. If you're sitting with your partner, make sure they can't see what you're writing. Okay? On the front side of the sheet, and hear me out before you start writing, I want you to write 3 behaviors of your spouse that you like. Don't start yet. I know it's hard for you to think about that. These are daily behaviors. Try not to generalize like they're compassionate. Be more specific, like, this is just an example. They empty the car of food rather than let it sit in the car. Food, water bottles, hats, gloves, stuff like that. Understood? If you're not married, 3 behaviors of someone you like. And I don't mean that in a marital way only, but a friend of yours, a coworker. Okay, start writing. 3 behaviors of your spouse that you like. Daily behaviors. And if they're sitting beside you, make sure you write down something fast, even if you're not writing anything. Keep writing. I'll read to you some of the cities you're joining us from. New Delhi, Aurangabad, Calgary, Portland, St. John's, Berkeley, Albany, Chapel Hill, Dunedin, New Zealand, Little Rock, Arkansas, I think, College Station. Okay, everyone's done? 3 behaviors? Okay, go to the other side of the sheet. What am I going to ask you now? 3 daily behaviors you dislike. I said 3. 3 daily behaviors that you dislike about your spouse or someone that you like. a teacher, a coach, a neighbor, whoever it is. 3 daily dislikable behaviors. Be specific. We have a strong California representation. Very cool. What fascinates me about digital backgrounds is that the majority of people have the Golden Gate Bridge in their background, even though they're not from California. Why do you have this as your digital background? Everyone's done? Okay. So let's analyze this. Number 1, which was easier or faster? Writing what you like or dislike? Please share in the chat. What was easier, faster? Okay, couple and couple. I don't know about Neelam, but couple like. Okay. Wow. You've been to this retreat many times, yes? Okay, next. I want you to read your list. 3 likes, 3 dislikes, but read it like it's not you. Imagine it's your sister or your parent or a neighbor who's reading this list, okay? Read what you wrote, but disidentify yourself from yourself. Visualize being someone else. Yes, you're reading your own list, but like you're someone else. Those who did this, tell me, what did you learn from reading your list as an objective person? What observations do you have? Seems kind of picky. No. Really? Dislikes were silly. Come on. That one should be more empathetic. The dislikes, who cares? The likes, how lucky. The dislikes are trivial. In the joy of independence, a technique to be more independent is to be more objective. Your likes and dislikes are not objective. Do you agree with my statement? For the sake of openness, if you're courageous enough, write down one of the dislikes that you have about your partner's daily behavior. Share in the chat. What is a dislike? People are moving to their keyboard right now. Picky eater. Lots of time on the phone. Long text messages. Phone addiction. Brushing his teeth, that's your problem? I would think the other way around. Unhealthy snacks. Reminds me to eat healthy. A coffee dependency. My observation from your lists is these are all first world problems, no? That term is not correct about first world, but for the sake of emphasizing the message, these are all first world problems. Vedanta is a vision. When you have a vision, your perspective is different. The implication that I'm trying to share with you, these likes and dislikes are not about them. They're about you. For someone else, these wouldn't be problems, right? Like one seeker wrote, they have no problems with their spouse. Another seeker will feel they only have problems with their spouse. Acharya Shankara has shared, Rakshasas are likes and dislikes. We tend to externalize demons, but the real demons are raga and dvesha. And the more observant you are of them, the more objective you become with them. This independence makes you feel more joyous. Do you agree? I think you all agree. The next part of this dynamics, and this will work more for those who are with their spouses. Can you share that list with them, please? I want to see you physically handing that piece of paper to them. Some of you ripped it up before you gave it to them. Why I'm asking you to do this? Let me give you some background. How many of you were in the Chinmay Mission Chicago parenting workshop that I just finished? I see Nan, Theos. I thought I saw Padmini too. There's Nicholas. Okay. One of the messages I shared with the parents is to create an environment of ease, E-A-S-E. If you're more at ease with yourself, your kids will grow up more at ease with themselves. Insecure parents raise insecure kids. One way that we feel less at ease or insecure is when we feel that we're always being judged. Do you agree? For sure. Why we feel that we're always being judged is because we're always judging. It is our habit to feel that others are judging, but if you feel judged, it's starting with you. In a very micro example, the more body conscious you are of yourself, the more body conscious you will be of others. Yes? If you're really into fashion, you're going to judge other people who are fashionable or not. But if you're not into fashion, really, everyone is fashionable then, correct? So my point here is, share your list. Share this comfortably without feeling the sense of judgment. Have you done that? For those who are with someone, read that list now. Take some time and read what makes your spouse happy and unhappy. Without judgment, okay? Look at me, don't look at them. Now that you have the perspective of your spouse, is it easy to change these behaviors? Yes or no? I see one nod, another nod, another nod, a lot of sarcastic smiles. I see Praveen sarcastically smiling. I think they're easy to correct. And what makes it hard is our ego. That my spouse wants this, that my spouse feels this way about me. I don't want to do it just because they want me to do it. What other demographic acts like that? Children, no? Our son who's turning 4, everything I tell him to do, he wants to do the opposite. So many of us are 40 and 50 and 60-year-old children. And I believe Vilasani had shared an insight about let it go. Let the ego go. These minor corrections from the spouse's side can bring a lot of joy in the household. I'll pause there. We'll explore this dynamics more. For the next 30-ish minutes, we're going to have a dialogue. Our workshop is founded on the 3D format, which is discourse, discussion, dialogue, or discourse, discussion, dynamics, dialogue. The point being, this becomes a more comprehensive experience, not just discourse. Giving you some background into why dialogue is important. You heard Vrendaji share some of the centers that I have served or am serving. 2 that I'm presently serving are Chinmaya Mission Cleveland and Chinmaya Albany. There's many seekers from these centers. And what we have started is chai chats. And all of you who are administrators of your centers or communities, please listen carefully. Before our Sunday classes start at around 10:30 a.m., from 10 to 10:20, we have a chai chat where seekers get together and they actively share what's going on in their life. Problems, positives, matters they're confused about. And everyone else actively listens. And there's such a sense of community in being able to share and listen openly. You feel safer, you feel stronger. As we create this chai chat culture, I've shared with the seekers in these centers, be vulnerable and be brief. Vulnerable, it is only when you're open that advice can work. In Meaningful Mornings, we have taken 46 mornings thus far, and Prince Arjuna's still not open. There's still going to be 10 more mornings before he finally opens up. And shortly after, Bhagavan Krishna begins to teach. Be vulnerable and be brief. Why brief? Because everyone is going through their own challenges. And by listening to others, sharing with others, our challenges become less serious. Fair enough? If any of you have any questions, virtually put your hand up. I think you know how to use that function. If you don't, you can wave your hand and JP will find you and unmute you. If you can't move your hand for whatever reason, then in the chat, you can write, I have a question, but don't write your question in the chat. The volume will be too many, too much. We'll start with Archana and Siddharth, obviously. So Archana and Siddharth are joining us from Toronto. You can unmute yourself. After that is Ashika from San Jose. Go ahead, Archana.
Hari Om Vivekji. Sorry, we were just yelling at each other and didn't hear what you said clearly. But in terms of the judging and the being judged, could you please elaborate on that?
Got it. See how dynamic they are? They're fighting during the retreat, not just before or after, during the retreat. The more you judge, the more you feel judged. That was my observation. And I made this simpler. The more I care about fashion, the more I judge others who are fashionable or not. But if I don't care about fashion, then I don't care what other people wear or look like. So now if you feel that you're being judged all the time, It's because you are engaged in the same, maybe not of others. You may not vocalize it, but you're still judging them mentally or judging yourself. Just like we often share, charity begins at home. We have to stop judging ourselves and others before we will feel less judged. Okay? This is especially so, and I know this is a marriage retreat. For many, the extension of marriage is parenting. Kids that grow up in a judgmental environment, I don't even know what to say about that. They just grow up weak. And kids that grow up in a supportive environment, nothing can stop them. To me, I'm reminded of Hanumanji. That's what those kids become. Ashika, go ahead. Happy to see how interested you are in this retreat. You're at work and you're still joining us.
Hari Om Vivekji and Vilasanuji, thank you so much for this retreat. Wouldn't miss it for anything. Regarding Bhagavan as karma phaladata, I'm wondering about viewing our spouse or everything as a gift of God. However, I'm asking for clarity on our prarabdha karma. To what extent does what we have done in our past life cause us to somewhat deserve the suffering that we have right now? For example, if my partner and I are having trouble with getting married because one person doesn't have a visa and one person has citizenship, and it's not anyone's fault, but we think it's prarabdha karma. That's not God's fault. How do we reconcile with prarabdha versus viewing God as this gift giver?
Got it. I'm muting you. Amazing how complex relationships are, no? The circumstance that Ashika is describing. Bhagwan, or our original parent, is the perfect architect and has designed a custom-made context, that means city and job and spouse and body type, for our content, that is to evolve, to become more godly. So whether you reflect on this as Bhagwan being the karma phaladata, like you did, or you separate this as prarabdha, who facilitates that prarabdha or that present karma or present experience? It's not you. It's not an inert system. Karma phaladata means Bhagwan manages your past actions, sanchita, your present experience, which is prarabdha, and your future experiences, which is agami. And all of this is managed for your betterment. Sometimes that betterment is easy, like having a healthy child. I know lots and lots and lots of couples, I can't even count how many, who are having difficulties having a child. When they have a child, the child is not well. And so to have a healthy child, that's amazing. Yes. For the one who has a healthy child, that is how they're to learn. For the one who has an unhealthy child, that is how they're to learn. So sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard. But Bhagwan, or the original parent in both contexts, wants the best for that seeker. So the description that you're offering about the complexities of the context, all of that is for your individual benefit and collective benefit. There is no negativity associated with this. Okay, and this is all factual to the extent of this is what the scriptures share. I'm not sharing this poetically. A motivational speaker will tell you, look in the mirror and say, you're good and people like you. You may not be good. People may not like you. But what I'm sharing is coming from the scriptures. Fair enough. Okay. No more questions? You know this is a marriage retreat. I'm surprised that I'm not already passing on questions to tomorrow. If you have questions, you can virtually raise your hand. I'm visiting the list that you all created in terms of what you wanted this retreat to be about. So we've collected all of that. I'll start sharing observations on this. And that's fine. I still want you to ask your questions live, okay? Here's the first. How to get through disagreements and decisions. How to find and have a happy marriage utilizing Vedanta. I'm going to focus on the first part. How many of you have been married for more than 25 years, by a show of hands? More than 10 years? More than 1 year? That was wrong. I meant around, that everyone's hands up. I meant around 1 year. For those who have been married for a decade or more, can you count how many disagreements you had in those 10 years? It is like Brahman, beginningless and endless. Aprameya, immeasurable. You can't. But you're all still smiling and laughing right now, because you understand and appreciate that disagreements are built into where there are two egos. And where there are two egos, those disagreements, instead of separating us more, are to bring us together more. Like criticism can be destructive or constructive. Agreed? Constructive criticism brings egos together. Destructive criticism separates egos. So my first point is, when you know the volume of disagreements, you don't take them as seriously. Like an awesome entrepreneur who doesn't worry when things are awesome or not awesome. They have the patience and the vision to just keep on moving forward. In terms of making decisions, the more variables that you apply to making a decision, the less right that decision is going to be made. Putting this in a different context, when you have multiple goals in your life, that really means you'll get none of them. But if you reduce your goals, if you have the single goal of being happy, you will strive and reach that goal. So now coming back to decisions, if a couple can make decisions in terms of Shreya, what is big picture, long-term, selfless in nature, that will be the more right decision. But if you start adding more variables in, your mind won't be able to absorb how complex this is, so you'll probably make the wrong decision. So simplify the variables. Just think of Prince Arjuna in chapter 1. He brings in endless variables. And finally, he shares, I can't figure this out. Bhagavan Krishna, you guide me definitively. And all works out. I'm going to Anjana, and I hope you can turn your camera on, EO1, AO6. I hope you're a human. If you can, good. There you are. Okay.
Namaste, Vivekji. I'm right now in India, but I'm from Cleveland Center. My husband, Madhu, is there. I just have a question. We talk about judgment and making decisions. The question is, when we are having conversations with anyone, you talked about it could be different relationships. And I'm seeking peace instead of anger and
Sure.
hearing about others' complaints, complaining about a person, and I decide to withdraw, or I tell them, I don't want to engage in decision, and these are my close
Okay.
family members.
Sure.
Is that a right decision or not? It's giving me peace, but they're not at peace with that.
Got it.
So how do you live in that kind of situation?
Got it.
Thank you.
I'm muting you. So Anjana's question is, if your family member is agitating you, is it okay to withdraw from them? I wish that was an option for me. But I know it's not an option. The first point is temporarily, yes. If you're in a context where it's making you a worse person, anything you do in that context is going to become worse. So if you need to take a timeout, we always associate timeouts with like kids who are doing wrong things. But a timeout is a form of self-care. Whether you go for a walk, or you breathe, or you shower, or you eat, or you just don't speak. But the intention of that should always go back towards your responsibilities. Because if your intention is not that, you're simply escaping. But if your intention is to go back to your responsibilities, then like I said, this is self-care. Now, in terms of relationships where you have more say or control, as an example, and obviously I was joking about my spouse and kids. I'm not joking. I was joking about my spouse and kids, right? We love each other and we live together. But in terms of my sisters, we don't live together. We don't have to see each other all the time. We don't. If they're negative and it doesn't help me to be a better person, I should simply control my time, that I give them time, but that time is always quality time, not quantity time. That way, I don't succumb to that negativity. Yes? Now, if it's a friend who you have full control over and they're not helping you grow, then you don't need to be with them. If we all think about the people we knew in high school, our best friends forever, do you even remember their names now? College is not that different. It is okay to outgrow relationships that are not so interdependent. All my relationships in this home are very interdependent, that are not so interdependent, as long as, again, the intention is because you want to be in satsang more, not because you dislike them. That is simply escapism. It is making you weaker. I'm continuing to Kathy, who is joining us from Valparaiso. Hariom Vivekji, I'm grateful for any tips on trusting a spouse again after infidelities. The first is, as I shared with Ashika, everything that happens to us is for our own self-development. In the moment, if our mind is not quiet, we will never agree with that and we will resist that. But when the mind is quiet, we will embrace that as hard as the context that you're describing. But it is still for our self-development in various ways. Perhaps one is to learn how to forgive. Perhaps another is to learn how to depart. Perhaps another is to be more independent. So there's lots to learn. The context you're describing in terms of trust. I'm not fond of the saying forgive and forget, because if you forget, you're going to get burned again. I like to change this to forgive and adapt. Forgive because everyone makes mistakes. Sometimes less serious, sometimes more serious. Everyone makes mistakes. and those who read the Puranas, some of the mistakes that are made are, from our context, unforgivable. But those same people become the greatest, like Angulimala. Do you all know Angulimala? He used to kill people and collect their fingers and wear that around his neck. But when he comes across a person like Bhagwan Buddha, he becomes like Bhagwan Buddha. So we all make mistakes. We can still become the greatest. Swami Vivekananda, Swami Chinmayananda were both atheists. The fact that you're in this retreat shows you're not an atheist. I'm not saying you're faithful, but I'm also indicating that you're not an atheist. So, acknowledging that a spouse can make mistakes, you forgive them, but you adapt. That adaptation is not so much external as it is internal. Don't depend on anyone, specifically someone immature like you're describing, for your happiness, for your completeness, because you're just going to become unhappy again. Swami Chinmayananda shared, don't put the key to your happiness in another's pocket. I'm going to go back to our sheet. If you have any questions, you can ask. Just a few more minutes. Too many Word documents opened. Okay, thoughts on being patient and tolerant. We'll start with patience. This is a virtue that all of us are deficient in. Agreed? How many of you would describe yourself as being strongly patient by a show of hands? Okay. 3 or 4 out of 25, so less than 20%. And if I ask their spouses, then those numbers would come down some more, yes? Why we lack patience is partly because of the society we live in. Everything is fast. Wi-Fi is fast, fast food, fast cars, etc. When it comes to objective sciences, that can happen fast. When it comes to subjective sciences like becoming courageous or generous, that can't happen fast. Swami Chinmayananda's very famous message is, hasten slowly. If you care more about the objective, you'll never be patient. When you start to care about the subjective, you will see you will become more patient. In terms of tolerance, that is not a very pleasant word. Suppose after this workshop, when Sheila comes downstairs and I share with her, I have tolerated you for 11 years now, and I give her a big smile. We may not reach the 12th year. So better than tolerance is mutual respect or endurance, which is called titiksha. We are able to endure another when we focus on their strengths rather than their weaknesses. That is how you become more tolerant, or you absorb more. I read an awesome quote that shared, those who save marriages, and please listen to this carefully, those who save marriages pull out weeds and water flowers. So now you think of any relationship you're in. Those who save that relationship, they pull out those weeds, as in they ignore the weaknesses and they focus on the strengths. That is a lovely message. Okay, very quickly, I'm going to try Praveen, then Simi, and if I have time, I'll go more. Otherwise, Tushar and Sonal will go tomorrow. Praveen, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Vivekji and Vilasanaji. How important is it to set common goals as a married couple? And I'm talking not the transactional kind of goals, but I think the higher sort of goals. And what is a good framework to think about? What should those goals look like?
Yep. Praveen and Ushar joining us from Portland. When it comes to, okay, so the question is, how important is it for a couple to manage their goals? And not functional goals like money and schooling, but more fundamental goals. The first is everyone's evolution is going in their own trajectory. Knowing that, one should become fully accepting of their spouse and children and everyone around them. If Ushaji is going to get enlightened before you, yes, Ushaji? Yes, Ushaji. Ushaji, you just have to accept that Praveen is like that. Because it's so intimate. Your relationship with the Creator, no one can know that. And that's why one should just accept their own evolution and another's evolution. Seekers who can do that, couples who can do that, are much happier than seekers and couples that expect others to evolve too. See, you two are fortunate because you're in this workshop together. If you look around, there's a whole lot of people whose spouses are not part of this workshop. And the reason for that is everyone's evolution is different. So be accepting. Secondly is, in terms of, now for you, your children, for your family, if you engage in external practices like satsang or going to classes, even if one is not so fond of that, they don't want to wake up on Sunday morning and serve and stuff like that, they should still do that for their family to set that precedent. And now, for one person, it's more of a forced discipline. For another person, it's a more natural discipline. My point in this is, in addition to accepting each other, you should think about the people that you're influencing. And even if you don't like it, you still have to do it for the people around you, for those who are younger. And when you're in that experience, those who are deeper, you can experience more. I'm not fond of rituals. So whenever there's a puja that's being facilitated, like Sheila's parents, they're very fond of pujas. So when I'm at their home or we go to the mandir, I close my eyes and I contemplate. So I'm there, I'm physically there, I'm doing what I need to do, but I'm taking this as deep as I want it to be. Fair enough. So you accept them internally, but externally, there's some practices that have to be done together. Simi, Tushar, Shobha, Sonal, we'll start with your questions. Not tomorrow, but your questions will have to be addressed on Sunday. Tomorrow, we're going to have a different format for our dialogue, and JP will note the order. So it was Tushar, Sonal, Simi, Shobha. Tushar, Sonal, Simi, Shobha. Okay. Our dialogue is complete, so now we're in 4D. Discourse, discussion, dynamics, dialogue. We continue to your RAD. This is your reflection adventure of the day. I am saying RAD with a D. Someone recently asked me, what is the rat that you're describing right now? I am not saying rat with a T. I am saying RAD with a D. Reflection adventure of the day. D like Deva, D like David. Is for you to not describe anything emotional. For 24 hours, you are not allowed to describe anything emotionally, like using likes and dislikes. The sun is beautiful. If you're sharing that objectively, share it. But if you feel like, I don't like that person, or I don't like this food, you just have to be quiet. Okay? So really I'm saying is 24 hours of Mona. Okay? This is more like a silence retreat. And finally, an announcement for everyone. We're aware that this is a pre-marriage, marriage, post-marriage retreat. On Sunday, April 18th at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, we are going to facilitate a workshop on gender identity. We have created a Evolving Adults mentorship program. And many of you are mentors or mentees. I see Janani's here, Kartika's here, etc. And a very complex matter in our culture particularly is sexuality and identity. So we're going to have a workshop on this. And you may be experiencing this directly, or you know people that are experiencing this, or you influence people that are experiencing this. So keep tuning into the Chinmaya Mission Niagara website for details on this precious workshop. We have lots of workshops on enlightenment and lots of workshops on Ramayana, and they're important. But you have to find peace at home before you can find peace outside of your home. That's why these marriage retreats and these identity workshops are most productive. Okay? Quickly checking in with Vilasini before we finish with a prayer. Vilasini, anything that Vilasini wants to add or share?
No, delighted. And we'll meet tomorrow, 8 p.m.
8 a.m. Nobody will be there at 8 a.m. 8 p.m. Great. And organizers, I'm presuming all is smooth? Okay. Everyone's in their Shantasana. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Be safe, be sound, be serene, be happiness.
Well, all right.